Hey guys, what's up? It is week 161, and of course I'm going to let you guys know that the 4K Blue Underground contest is still going on. You get a chance to win Zombie and Maniac in 4K. All you have to do is basically shoot your address over in an email to screamingtoiletcontest@gmail.com. Now, you don't have much time. I'll probably be drawing, right when you see this, it'll probably be posted Wednesday. You'll have till Friday or Saturday to enter, so be quick, and then I'll draw the following week, or that week, I mean. So yeah, so next week I will be drawing for the contest. So get it in at ASAP when you see this video, and hopefully you'll have time to enter. I have about, I don't know, 50, 60 entries so far, so that's pretty good, and we'll see who's going to win it. I'll send it right over overseas and everything, so yeah. Also, I want to let you guys know about a correction. I said that Blood Quantum took place in, like, Oregon or something. It takes place in Canada. It's a Canadian movie. I don't know what... I knew it was a Canadian movie, but I thought it took place in the United States. I'm a dummy. Took place in Canada. Apologize. Also, I want to let you guys know that I did another guest spot in the 22 Shots of Moods and Horror podcast. I was on the Crazies episode. You guys know I love the original Crazies, OG versus remake, and love the original Crazies by George Romero. We talked about a lot about that, and we talked about the remake some. But yeah, so if you're interested in that, that should be up within a little bit. So check out the 22 Shots of Moods and Horror podcast. So I guess let's hop into some of the reviews. The first one is from Arrow Video, and this is Why Don't You Just Die? Now, this is a Russian film, and I had heard a little bit about this one. I can't remember if Jeremy, actually, from 22 Shots had seen this one. He might have. I can't remember. But, yeah, this one's pretty crazy. Right away, I noticed that it was kind of shot like a Western movie. The music kind of reminded me of some, like, Ennio Morricone kind of stuff, which I kind of dug. And it would cut to, like, close-ups of the eyes and then a wide shot, like the Westerns like Sergio Leone would do. Another thing I'm fond of. So this is kind of a crazy movie. I guess it jumps around quite a bit. Not quite a bit, but the story structure is a little bit, not typical. So what we have right in the beginning is this young man kind of knocks on the door of this house, and this bald man answers. He seems kind of intimidating, and he's like, what do you want? He's like, I'm here. I'm your daughter's boyfriend. He's like, never said she had a boyfriend. So it's really awkward at first, and he's carrying a hammer, and you kind of assume that there's something definitely about to happen, that he's probably going to try to kill them, or you don't know who he really is. So then after, there's this amazing scuffle where it's hyper violent, like super violent, over the top, almost like Sam Raimi violence, where if someone's stabbed, blood hits the ceiling, or Japanese style splatter gore. So it's funny that the title is Why Don't You Just Die, because it's damn near impossible to kill this young kid and almost everybody else in the movie. So what we learn is it keeps kind of flashing back. I think it's divided into kind of 4 parts, where you have these characters and you see their backstory and why they're all doing this and why they're all here. And of course, it's a story of greed, like, a lot of those spaghetti westerns were, especially Good, Bad, and Ugly over the Gold. So it definitely has that going for it. There's some twists and revelations that are pretty cool, or reveals, I should say, is a little bit better. More accurate. So there's a bunch of that going on. I really like the main performance by there's like, I guess it's kind of like an ensemble, so all the characters are kind of fairly leveled out here. But I really like the dad, the cop. He's really intimidating and scary, and also kind of funny at the same time. And even though he's not really a good guy at all, I right in the beginning I kind of sided with him, but you learn not everybody is who they seem. And there's a lot of people taking advantage of other people here and there stuff. But regardless, I really enjoyed this one. I thought it was well done. I thought it was vastly entertaining. I thought it was really violent. I thought it was really funny too at times. The violence is kind of humorous too, because it gets like to that point where people are actually not dying. Like, just they'll do some crazy things with it. But it's dark. It's really dark, and they build this whole movie in one location. Like, it's pretty much in this apartment, and it's a set. You can tell because they destroyed the hell out of it. There's lots of kind of gags where they'll fly through the walls and trash the whole thing and spray blood all over the walls. But really enjoyed this one. Really dug it. Liked how it unfolded and everything. And there's some nice camera techniques. And they do go out of the room in the flashbacks and stuff, and they do some cool things, especially over a murder scene, which is really kind of crazy. But I would give this one a strong recommend. It was one of the better movies I saw this year. There's a nice little featurette with Kim Newman talking about the movie. He definitely makes correlations or comparisons to Westerns for sure. And that you have to, right when you watch this, you're like, this is like like a crime western or something like that. It feels like that big, heavy western influences. And he also talks a lot about Russian cinema and how the world sees Russian cinema and how Russian cinema sees itself and how they're kind of playing into that, which is also interesting. There's also some shorts by the director on here as well. It looked good. It sounded good. It's a pretty entertaining movie from Arrow Video. I would recommend checking this one out for sure. Yeah, high recommend on this. Good stuff.
Я хочу, чтобы ты убил для меня человека.
Отец?
Не знаю, может, это какая-то профессиональная деформация, но я очень внимательно отношусь к друзьям своей дочери.
Я лучше пойду.
Сейчас мы поиграем.
Что это за деньги?
Бонус к зарплате.
Мы сразу поняли, что парень-то он хороший, добрый.
Вот суки. Отпусти его.
Куда его отпущу? Он же отморозок! Слушай, ну извини за ногу, ну...
Okay, alright guys, another one from Arrow Video, and I had heard about this movie for years. It has Robert Ginty and Fred Williamson in it, and years back the people would always point out online about the music. White fire, yeah, the music's ridiculous, gets stuck in your head, but Arrow Video put this one, this kind of a cult movie, big time cult movie on Blu-ray, and it had kind of a reputation for being like this cheesy, kind of so bad it's good action movie from the 80s, 83. Robert Ginty is from Exterminator, of course, and a handful of other movies. And if you don't know who Fred Williamson is, I don't know what to tell you. But this plot is ridiculous. There's a brother and sister, and they're kind of like, I guess they're helping smuggle diamonds or whatever. And there's this super radioactive diamond called White Fire that's kind of a almost a mythological thing that no one really believes. So essentially what happens is the sister gets killed, and he finds another woman that looks like the sister, and they kind of give her a plastic surgery thing to make her look like the sister so they could continue the heist. And there's some people that work in the mines, and there's double crossing here. But the woman who used to be the prostitute who changed into his sister, she was a prostitute. So Fred Williamson, who is like a pimp, comes looking for her with his guys. So it gets all convoluted and complex and ridiculous and nonsensical. And there's these big set pieces that are nonsense where like Robert Ginty grabs a chainsaw and he starts slashing and fighting with these guys on docks. And it's just weird and bizarre and goofy, and I find it really funny. Like if you guys ever seen the movie Scalpel that Arrow Video put out as well, Scalpel is like this kind of Southern Gothic movie where this plastic surgeon basically turns this woman into his daughter so he can get inheritance, but there's this weird incestuous thing with his daughter, and it's really creepy because he's like infatuated with the girl that looks like his daughter. Really creepy stuff here and dirty. And Whitefire has that too, like, and the brother and sister do not look at each other like they're brother and sister, and even in the very beginning when they get rescued as kids, which is kind of a hilarious scene that actually has the director in it doing action stunts and getting set on fucking fire. But yeah, it's just weird that this relationship that the two have is just kind of batshit. Like, it's disgusting as hell, and then as it progresses, it's not really his sister, and she's been turned in to look like his sister, and it's just like, it's a whole movie where it seems like the lead hero wants to screw his sister, kind of like Scalpel is a movie about the main character wanting to screw his daughter. And they're both about, greed and getting the diamonds and everything like that. But there's some action set pieces that are fun. It's ridiculous. The music is really catchy and very 80s. And the movie looks pretty good for what it is. They cleaned it up, because it's a low budget movie. It sounds good. Those cheesy scores and soundtrack will come in nice on your setup. It's an enjoyable movie, and Fred Williamson is interviewed on here. I loved hearing him talk about it, and he's like, yeah, I noticed in the editing they really didn't know what they were doing, and they'd have a guy just waiting to punch and stuff, and he's like, but it's a bad movie, but it's entertaining to watch. It's funny to watch. And does that really make it a bad movie then? And Kat Ellinger says the same thing on the commentary. And they are right. It's not intentionally made bad. It's just made bad because they were, you know, kind of amateur filmmakers on a budget and they just didn't really know what they were doing. And the end result is entertaining, kind of shellac, but it is entertaining and it's not purposely bad. It's earnest, as stupid as it is. And, you know, I can give this a slight recommend because I did enjoy watching it. And the music's actually very catchy. I challenge anyone to not get it stuck in your head. It'll probably be playing in the background here because I like it. I dig the music. But it's kind of cool that Arrow put this one out because I would have never guessed they would have put this one out ever.
When Robert Keaton, star of The Exterminator, and Fred Williamson from the Bronx Warriors meet head-on in their quest for the fabulous 200-carat diamond, White Fire, the screen erupts in high-powered violence. But other corrupt forces also want the priceless gem, resulting in an onslaught of brute forces and ruthless conflict. Suspense and action are interwoven into a web of bloodletting adventure. White Fire, a total screen detonation.
Okay, the next one, I do not have a cover or even a trailer for the damn thing. Maybe I'll sneak a clip in here if I can find anything not too dirty. But it is from my friend Nathan Rumler. He directed Gay for Prey, which I was in, which is a comedy. And so, you know, I obviously have some biases towards it. But Nathan Rumler directed this one. It's called Amityville Vibrator. That's right, Amityville Vibrator. And the title is obviously kind of a take or making fun of the, you know, there was a part of the Amityville series where everything was like, basically, this is a dollhouse from the Amityville home, or this is a clock, it's about time. So it's kind of a joke about the Amityville items being taken out of the house and making a movie after that because the Amityville name is not copyrighted. And all the really, really awful movies that have Amityville in the title that have come out in the last 10 years or so, like Amityville, you know, In the Woods, and all those crummy movies that are just living off the Amityville name that probably appear in Redbox that are just unbearable. I'll never watch those. So this is kind of a parody or kind of poking fun at those, but I have to say this is also an SOV movie, so it's dirt cheap. The sound's kind of messed up at times, and it does have some familiar faces for me in there, some indie people like Kirill Waring, who is an Invalid, so I know her. She's in a couple other things. Nathan Rumler pops up in here, and you know, Steve Nolan is in here from some of their other stuff they've worked on, and geez, Ashley Short, she's in Gay for Prey as well. So it's got a couple indie people I recognized and that are in some of their other movies. Brian and his movies who do, geez, I can't think of their movies off the top of my head, their name of their movies, but Rumler and Papandrea do the movies. And Kilby. So, this one, like I said, this movie is super raunchy. It's basically, I would call it softcore, but there's penetration shots. So it's not really softcore. There's dicks, of course. There is girls masturbating with the Amityville Vibrator. The plot is there's these two paranormal kind of people looking for Amityville items. They're looking for this Amityville Vibrator, but this one girl picks it up at this garage sale, but it's like it's supposed to go to her or whatever, you know, haunting movies work. So basically starts to have weird hauntings and possessions, and people are kind of possessed by the Amityville Vibrator. There is like a pretty much highly graphic scene of two women having pleasuring themselves or pleasuring each other with the vibrator, and it goes all in. You see everything, which kind of shocked me that they went that far with it. But the movie is also a comedy, so there's these really kind of goofy one-liners in here that actually some of them made me laugh out loud, especially when they're talking dirty to each other. But the part that really got me was this moment where there's a dummy that's somehow affected by the Amityville Vibrator, and it's sitting there in a chair, and then they come back and it has this fake mustache. It's obvious on it, and Corella is like, man, there's something different about that doll. And the other girl's like, I don't know. And they just like zoom in on the doll and zoom back on her, and she's making a stupid face, and they keep cutting closer and closer and closer. It's just a really goofy scene, but makes me laugh because Corella's face is great. She's like, her face is just funny. She does a really good funny face in here. The actresses and actors, the people in this movie are pretty fearless, man. They do some crazy stuff. I'm like thinking like, I don't think I would have done that. So you got to give them credit for a lot of that kind of stuff. Like it does suffer from budget constraints. It is very low budget. It is SOV, so there's that going on. And there's a tripping scene that lasts a long time that might lose some people, some viewers, but it's just really kind of bizarre and weird, and they're out in the woods tripping for a long period of time. But the gore effects are done by James and May Bell, so you guys seen any of those movies? They're like crazy SOV movies that are super gory and just kind of almost surreal and German splatter-like to me, where the effects are really weird and crazy and just like their own world kind of deal thing. And those are the effects, so there's tons of splatter and like weird body parts strewn about. This one is definitely, you know, only for a certain amount of people. So if you're worried about like highly sexualized stuff or SOV or kind of just weird movies, like it's just batshit. Like this is going to be a very small group of people that dig this one, that really have raunchy senses of humor and everything like that. But there's some pretty explicit stuff in here, which even took me back, where I was like, wow, that's explicit. That is very explicit. But if this sounds like it's up your alley, check it out. I think it's debuting. It should have debuted its screening already. Its online premiere already should have been done. Actually, I think June 6th it should. You guys won't be seeing this until at least, you know, middle June 10th or something like that. So yeah, if it sounds like it's up your alley, check it out. It's pretty bonkers. Okay, this is kind of a new series I will be doing. If you guys know the podcast Under the Stairs, that is ran by Duncan McLeish. Hope I said his last name right. He's a Scottish guy. He does a bunch of stuff, and he does these summer shows where he basically every summer he'll pick a decade of movies, and he invites all these different podcasters on there to basically talk about the movies and everything like that. They each get to pick like two. It's this elaborate set of rules, and they each pick like four or something, and they break it down to two. So they review like 10 movies together, and there's 4 podcasters, and then they put 2 through to make the rankings for the decade to find the best of the decade. Last summer they did the 90s, which I listened to, and because JP was kind of going to be he was on the 90s show, so he was talking to Duncan, and he kind of was talking about the adjudicator spots, and ended up they kind of brought me up, he did, and got me on the show. So adjudicator is a little different. The adjudicator, basically they are assigned 2 years this year. He's doing it different this year. And I basically am the double backup for them. They pick the 2 that go through, and I have a choice to pick 2 that I think are better. And then there's another adjudicator that double checks me, and then everybody else votes on them. So basically, it's kind of a complex situation. I am the first adjudicator. So basically, my job is to watch the 10 movies that they've chosen, and they pick 2, and I got to pick the 2 that I think are best. And I've got the years 2001 and 2002. If you've not checked out the podcast Under the Stairs, I suggest you do so. It's a really good podcast. He has interviews on there. He reviews Arrow, 88 Films, all sorts of stuff. He's one of the most professional guys in the podcasting biz. Super nice guy, too. But, yeah, so I got 2001 and 2002. I've, for years, complained about these years in Years of Horror. I always be like 1997 to like 2003 or 4 is like the worst time for horror movies. But basically, I have to watch 10 2001 movies that they've picked and 10 2002 movies I've picked. I'm going to try to do 5 a week for 4 weeks, because at the end of June I have to be done, so maybe I'll cram them in there. Some of these I had seen, there's a few that I hadn't. So the first one I'm going to start off with is Session 9 by, who did this? Brad Anderson. This is a Scream Factory release, and this one I had fond memories of. I caught it years ago, I don't know, over 10 years ago, 15 years ago maybe even, whenever it, and I caught it on TV. Me and my friend just were sitting there one day, and it was like, what's this? It's on demand, it's free. So we put it on, and we started watching it, and I liked it. We both were like, that was pretty good. And years later, I never forgot it. Session 9 was one of those movies that stuck with me. I thought about it for years. So when I saw that it was on the list of 2001, I was like, okay, I'm gung-ho to definitely rewatch that one because I have kind of a good memories about it. It stars basically the biggest actor that you'll recognize by name is David Caruso, but it has Larry Fessenden in here as a small role, and some other people that you recognize. Scott Ross from Oz is in here. I don't know his actor name. All of them are recognizable faces and all really solid actors. So I like the setup of this movie quite a bit. It involves, it's a psychological horror, but it also has maybe like some Shining aspects to it, like a haunted location almost, or something like that. But it brings up all these different questions, and you wonder what is actually going on. So these 5 guys are basically hired to get the asbestos cleared out of an old mental asylum that they can't tear down because it's considered a historical location. So these guys basically have to go in and clean out the asbestos so they can update this place, and they have a week to do so. They underbid themselves so they could get the job. The guy who's running the show is kind of desperate for it. David Caruso is kind of his his foreman, and then he has like 3 or 4 guys working under him. One son. Two of them, David Caruso and one of the other guys, kind of have this kind of back and forth because one stole the other one's girlfriend. There's a young kid that's there, and there's a guy who's studying kind of to be a lawyer. So basically, they go into this asylum, and in the beginning of this movie, there's some great moments where a security guard kind of sets up the whole place, and he talks about the history a little bit of the place, saying that, you know, back in the day, Ronald Reagan closed down all these asylums and kind of let the people go out into the streets or get sent to these care homes and everything like that. And then there's this scene where the guy who's basically hiring them to renovate it walks them through the whole wing and breaks it down like it's built kind of like a mutated bat, and it's like a big evil bat or something like that in the wings and everything like that. So they break it all down and they start explaining all these things, and through that you kind of set up the whole situation and how creepy the whole place is. And right when you go into the area, it's like a character in itself. It's just horrifying. Like there's this abandoned chair sitting there in the middle. There's all these weird pictures on the wall, and it kind of takes you right back to that documentary The Cropsey, when they talk about Andre Ron, and he was in one of these insane asylum mental institution places, and the care that they got was not very great, and you just kind of put yourself in that kind of situation and you're just unnerved immediately. It's just very effective and very creepy. So essentially these guys start to work, and you can sense their relationship, their characters, and over time you kind of know who all these guys are fairly quickly, and it starts to set up like these little skips in them that they might not be all like right. And one guy, the guy who's Scott Ross and Oz, starts to go down to the basement, and he's the guy who practices to be a lawyer, so he's interested in law, and he starts to listen to these tapes that he finds in the basements, and they're all labeled session 1, 2, 3, and he's listening to them, and he's listening to the story unfold about this person that's being interviewed, kind of like they obviously have a multiple personality disorder, and they're hiding something deeply embedded within them, and you see like pictures of the person who they're interviewing, and it's like Billy and Simon, and there's different voices, and it's just so goddamn unnerving and just unpleasant. And you can just tell that all these guys are possible suspects to being people that could snap. You don't know what, and they play with that. They play with you. They play with their, you know, their unloyalties and their mental stability, and you really don't know what's going on, if it's the place that's completely at fault, or it's their psychology that's at fault. But the last line in this movie is just such a wonderful, wonderful, creepy moment. And it's just so perfect, and it plays in so well. And the reveal, the way they reveal it, I just get chills every time I think about it even. It's just so goddamn effective and so messed up and creepy. And just scares the hell out of me, because so often you don't get a group of grown men going in to do a job. And there's so many movies that don't take place when you're at work. Alien is a movie that takes place when you're at work. You work like 30% of your life, and movies take place never at work. It just doesn't happen very often, especially horror movies. So I really like the idea that these guys are stuck in this insane asylum fixing it up, and it's just a creepy location. It's perfect. And people would compare this to The Shining, I think. I mean, I don't want to give high hopes for people, because The Shining is The Shining, you know, and Session 9 is Session 9. But I think this is a fantastic movie. I think it's a great film. I'd love to hear what the other people are going to say about it. Some people may like it, some people may dislike it, but and Caruso, he's an actor that, you know, I've always had mixed feelings about, but as I got older, I'm thinking, why? He never really did anything. The CSI show was kind of cheesy to me, but that's CSI. That's just something that's cheesy. But when I think back on his small roles in like Hudson Hawk, I'm like, he's fine, or China Girl, or King of New York, I'm like, he's good in those movies, or Mad Dog and Glory. He's kind of a hothead, but it works. And this one, I really like him. And they do a switch with him where you think he's something else, and it kind of switches, and you're like, oh, a couple times, really. But you can't forget the line where he's like, fuck you! But I love this movie. There's great scares. It just works well. Built suspense very well. Psychological stuff to the max. Love it. Love it very much, and it's got like 2-3 different storylines going on all at the same time, and they come together perfectly at the end, and it just works and makes a statement about, you know, mentally ill people, or even sometimes places that could maybe affect your mental health just by being there.
I gotta get construction crews in here by Columbus Day, so you got a guesstimate how long?
I've got 4 really good guys. 1 week, we're gone.
That's fast.
I need the job. So the loonies are outside in the real world, and here we are with the keys to the loony bin, boys.
You might actually want to be grateful. You're about to make some decent money.
What's the catch?
Patricia Willard scandal, 1984.
I
want you to try to remember what happened 24 years ago.
Use your imagination.
The shrinks figured that with these new techniques they designed, they could release hidden memories.
You can hear me.
You okay?
I want to go home.
I wouldn't tell anybody about this. If they find out about Hank, they're gonna find out about the others.
What of the others?
I want to come home. I am so sorry.
Okay, the next one I actually watched on Amazon. I rented it in HD because I only have the DVD. But this is From Hell, from the Hughes brothers. And believe it or not, I'm a huge Hughes brothers fan. And this one is the one I haven't seen. I don't know why. I watched Menace to Society and Dead Presidents at least a half a dozen times. And I've always showed friends those movies because I'm a miserable person and I like making other people miserable at the same time. Like, hey, watch this movie. I love it. You're going to be depressed for days. And I remember my friend actually told me that after. He's like, why do you show me this shit, man? It's just, I'm not like you. I can't just get up and go to work and do stuff after watching those movies. I'm depressed for after days. I'm like, hey, I like them. But From Hell is a Jack the Ripper story, and I've always been kind of interested in the Jack the Ripper movies. A Study in Terror and all them. And this one does have some similarities to the Study in Terror with the kind of, I guess I would say, conspiracy of who Jack the Ripper is. But okay, Johnny Depp stars in this movie, and Johnny Depp to me has always been kind of a hit or miss actor. I think he's really solid in this one. Rory, what's the guy's name? Coltrane, Robbie Coltrane, I think is his name in here. I think it is. Geez, he's in a bunch of stuff. He's really good in here. Heather Graham is in here. There's some other familiar faces, but this takes place in Whitechapel, of course, during the Jack the Ripper murders. And basically it focuses on a group of prostitutes are some of the main characters in the movie, and I like that because all these movies always have prostitutes get mangled and killed, and a lot of people always claim that these movies are heartless and they hate women, but I've always genuinely felt bad for the prostitutes and always been most sympathetic towards the prostitutes in the movie because I'm like, they're just out there trying to make a living, maybe they're hard up, but honestly, Whitechapel is such a miserable freaking place. The way they do this, and the production design is great in this movie. How all the women basically, they talk about, having to pay like money just to sleep on a bench in a church, and then when their time's up, they get woken up and sent back out on the street, and they all have these problems with alcohol and everything. But Johnny Depp is sort of a semi kind of, I want to say, not a psychic, but somebody who has like, not premonitions, I guess you would say, like spider sense, premonitions or whatever. Where he can kind of sense or get visions of crimes to happen and everything like that. But he also is addicted to opium because he's had some hardships in his life, loss of loved ones here and there. He gets involved with the case, and he kind of starts a relationship with Heather Graham's character. He's kind of like a main prostitute here. Riley, is it Mary Riley? I think it is. I want to say it is. Is that right? I know that name so familiar, maybe it's not. But regardless, I think there's a movie. Was it Julia Roberts in that movie? Geez, man, something, I can't remember everything. But so essentially, he gets involved with the case, and there's a group of prostitutes that are all witness to something they probably shouldn't have witnessed that involves Jack the Ripper, and it goes up this huge ladder involving the Masons and the Freemasons and all these kind of people in politics and positions of power. Ian Holm is in it from Alien, of course, and he is there that starts kind of like a doctor that ends up kind of breaking the ranks and helping Johnny Depp a little bit. But of course, this movie has a bunch of twists and turns and everything like that. And the murders, I think, are really well done. I think they're effective. I like the cast. I like the prostitutes, and they get picked off and everything. And some of the stuff is actually directly out of the case, if I remember correctly, like the thing written on the walls, like the Jews are to blame or something like that. I can't remember every little detail about the movie. Did watch these, over possibly a week ago. But I thought this one was pretty good movie. I thought it was well made, well acted. There's some good set pieces in here, and there's a little bit more action than I thought there would be. I like it. I like the relationship between Coltrane and Johnny Depp. I think it's believable, and I don't have much complaints about the movie. I think it's well done. I think it's creepy, and I do like the Jack the Ripper story, of course, and they go kind of up into like the big leagues where somebody could be, a conspiracy and stuff like that, and that reminded me a little bit of the Study of Terror, that one, where they're kind of covering up things here and there. But I would recommend this one. I would like to maybe rewatch it and talk in depth with somebody else about the movie, but From Hell, good stuff, and it's completely different from anything else the Hughes brothers ever did, which I also respect greatly, because you don't really typically see, somebody get to do something so different all the time, but just completely different, and it's such a big movie and well done too.
Inspector, I know your reputation for making brilliant guesses that turn out to be right. Someone told me you claim to dream the answers.
Sometime this evening, a Bangtail was murdered in George Yard.
That doesn't sound much out of the ordinary.
It was the way she was done, Inspector. It was the way that she was done that cries out for a man of your talent.
He can foresee the victims.
I saw her. I saw her face.
Your vision's about me.
Most definitely.
You know, they used to burn men like you alive.
He could sense the suspects.
He must be someone with money.
And how do you know that?
This ain't killing for profit. This is ritual.
But for an inspector in charge of the world's most infamous investigation,
he's punishing them. I want double shifts within this area.
We'll have mayhem on the streets.
I believe this was done by someone with a working knowledge of dissection.
An educated man, that's preposterous.
The last thing he expected.
I want you and your friends off the streets until I can sort this thing out.
I do trust you.
Was to get close to someone who would be next.
Jack the Ripper's not finished.
Where is he?
I want you.
One day, men will look back and say that I gave birth to the 20th century.
You're not going to see the 20th century.
Okay, here we go. Another one from 2001 is Suicide Club by Science Sono. And the other one I reviewed on here was What Force of Love, his newer one. And I thought that movie was kind of crazy. And the messages and themes and everything in his movies, it's like I can kind of grasp them, but I can never fully understand them. And I got to do the same about Suicide Club. This was also another rewatch. And I hadn't seen it in years. I remembered a lot of the big set pieces or huge moments in the movie. But there's some real iconic stuff in here. The basic plot is that young girls or boys or young people, teenagers, are just all of a sudden killing themselves at a high rate, and it's kind of in the backdrop of like this rising pop star little girl band, and the sheriff has like a young kid, a couple of teenage kids, and a wife and everything, and he's really kind of dived headfirst into this case, trying to figure out what's going on and everything like that in the case, and they find this kind of roll of skin that is basically a chunk of skin out, and one has a tattoo, so they're trying to figure out, they keep finding these after a bunch of people have killed themselves, but these skin patches are actually from people yet to kill themselves, so they're wondering. It just gets really complex and really weird. And it's got these really weird moments. Like a really amazing moment in here in Suicide Club is when the group of girls actually all joint hands and jump on under the railroads and of course the subway and jump in front of the train. It's just like super iconic. This movie, I don't know what it was shot on, but it definitely looks budget. Like there's a budget kind of constraint holding it back. It's not the best looking movie. It's kind of cheap looking. Obviously not shot as well as something like Force of Love. I mean, Sono probably got a bigger budget later on in his career after he proved himself with stuff like Suicide Club, but a lot of these Japanese kind of horror movies are huge police procedurals. Even stuff like like Ring, they all have that kind of police procedural aspect, which is kind of to me, they always is weird that they're somehow feel similar to giallos, that a lot of those giallos are like horror movies, and then they're also police procedurals, so it has a lot of that going on too, where it's like a lot of detectives or cops are the main characters in the film and not really teenagers and stuff. So I dig that. It's a nice change of pace, but there's also some funny moments, I guess, not even funny, but suspense moments where they think some people are going to do it, and they're like basically tailing them the whole time. But There's also kind of a thing where they think there's this cult that's responsible for the suicides, and there's just so many weird moments in here, and kind of extreme stuff, and people jumping on puppies and bags and shit like that. It's a weird movie, and it's not the most approachable movie. I don't think it's the most approachable, definitely not of 2001, and it's one of these ones where I feel like you'd have to watch it 5 or 6 times, maybe a couple times in a row, to really gather what the hell exactly is going on. For me, like, I could see some things, but it's just never really directly it connects with me. It doesn't connect with me all that well. Like I said, there's so many memorable things in here, especially when the lady's chopping the vegetables. It's just like so screwed up and everything. But I never really grasped what the hell was going on or why it was going on. And I don't know if you're necessarily supposed to, or it's maybe a statement on the high suicide rate in Japan. I don't know. And I'd like to discuss this with somebody, or maybe somebody that knows more about the film or looked into it more. But it's a movie that always just kind of left me wondering. I like it. I think it's good, but it's always kind of left me a little blank in some spots. And I'm not sure. I'd love to hear them talk about this one on the podcast, so I can maybe, develop some more opinions of myself by hearing them kind of discuss it and everything like that. But that's Suicide Club. Simon Sono is a director that I'd like to watch some more stuff from him, of course, like Cold Fish and a slew of others that I've heard are great. Okay, this one I actually have in HD on Amazon Prime, so I watched it there, but I do have a DVD of it, and it is Guillermo del Toro's Devil's Backbone. And I'm going to say this, that Guillermo is the absolute best at doing fantasy horror. And fantasy horror, I mean, really, he might be one of the only guys that's still doing it at a high level, period. I can't even think of anybody who's ever done it as well as him. We have, of course, stuff like Crimson Peak, which is gothic, but it has a fantastical, more so Pan's Labyrinth. Pan's Labyrinth and The Devil's Backbone. And last year we had Tigers Are Not Afraid, which is not Del Toro, but very heavily inspired by Del Toro, and I'd put it in the same category, this fantasy horror. Devil's Backbone, it's funny, is Devil's Backbone's a ghost story. And I've never been a huge fan of ghost stories, but in, Mexico, this is a Mexican movie, but it takes place in Spain. Maybe it's actually filmed in Spain. I'm not 100% sure, but I know Del Toro is Mexican. And in those cultures, ghosts are not the same. Like, ghosts are not the same in any culture. They're all different, varying from different cultures. Like America, they haunt. But in Japan, they're not necessarily the same either. And in, Mexico and Spain, they're not the same either. Ghosts are not really there to haunt you. It feels more like they're there to warn you. And this is definitely kind of and the best ghost stories I feel are like the ghost is there to get justice for itself, and that's definitely what's happening here in The Devil's Backbone. And like Pan's Labyrinth, this movie takes place during a big turmoil in Spain, like wartime in the situation. So the main character in here it's like they're always like these historical, fantastical things, which it's a great way to take a reality and put fantasy in reality. It just makes it feel grounded, and I just love how he does that. I think he's one of the best directors there is, actually, probably, once you think about it. He might not be one of my top 5 favorites, but he is probably one of the best. if not one of the best making movies right now. But the way he does that is just fantastic. But also it has like just like Pan's Labyrinth. There's so many comparisons. I want to compare this to Pan's Labyrinth. I think they make very great sister brother pieces or whatever. But a young boy, he has lost his father to the war and he doesn't know it yet, kind of like the revolution, or basically the rebels. His dad was a rebel. He has died, and these guys bring him back and tell him that he's going to stay at this orphanage until his dad can come back and everything like that. So he puts into this orphanage, which doesn't have much money or resources or anything like that, and it's kind of run by three people. This old doctor who's super awesome. This young another older woman with one leg who has kind of a old relationship with the doctor, and then another lady who's a teacher. And there's some other people around that kind of help and everything like that. But that's pretty much the whole ordeal here. So he's thrown in with these kids, and at first he's kind of bullied, and then eventually he finds his place here. But there's this really great, awesome moment, or not moment, but kind of deal where there's this missile that has sit right in the middle of the whole school that was dropped and never went off, and they said they defused it. So it's just like this idea that they're sitting next to this missile that technically maybe could go off at any time. But, and there's a ghost, of course, here. And you don't really know exactly what happened to the ghost. We do get a glimpse at a possibility in the beginning that kind of like sets some things up. But the ghost there, that the young boy keeps seeing him, and everybody knows that the ghost exists. They don't really want to talk about it. But with the revolution and everything like that, there's some details and some things that happen that kind of put them in jeopardy and everything. And the school is hiding this gold for the revolution, or the rebels. So there's some people that work there that have some, bitter feelings and everything like that. And I don't want to spoil everything, but there's some really brutal, very sad moments in the film that happen, and stuff where people die that you don't expect to die, and they die really, really sad and tragically. And it's a moment where like kids are the lead. So when kids are in danger, it's terrifying. And Del Toro's not afraid to kill kids. If anybody's ever seen Mimic or Pan's Labyrinth or any of his movies, he doesn't pull his punches when it comes to people being killed. And he doesn't ever. It's not like he's like, yeah, isn't this great watching these kids get... It's always like a tragedy with his death. Like, I've never watched a Del Toro movie and been like, that was a satisfying kill. I'm either like, oh, or I feel awful. Like, when people die in his movies, it's besides, unless maybe a main villain, it's never satisfying. It's kind of bothersome. Like, his violence is bothersome, even though like some of the monsters or designs are grotesque and fantastical and awesome looking. When there's actual kills, they're bothersome. But the opening of this movie is such a wonderful thing. I mean, the cinematography, the filmmaking techniques are all great and everything like that. And even the CGI, even though it's dated from 2001, it still looks good. And this movie looks great for 2001 once you think about it. But this opening, it has this narration that says, "What is a ghost?" And it gives this giant, lovely, lovely kind of monologue, a speech, or a poem. Really, it's a poem. And it closes in a way with that. And it just bookends it so wonderfully. And it's just such almost a tearjerker, to be honest. And it's just, I kind of love it. I kind of love their statement on Ghost and everything about it. It's just a really intelligent movie, and a wonderful movie. A wonderful, wonderful ghost story, and different, and set in a place where reality, and fantasy mix in a perfect blend. Okay, this next one here is another first-time watch. I watched it on Amazon too. I rented it, but I have the DVD of The Others with Nicole Kidman. Yeah, and I like Nicole Kidman. You know, from Destroyer and some other things I've seen her in. Never really had any complaints. The Others was a ghost story again, and at the time I was a ghost story hater. Obviously, I'm an idiot though, because Session 9 could be considered a ghost story in some aspects, maybe, and Devil's Backbone could be, of course, is a ghost story. So I really just in years I never watched The Ring. So, and I like that one a lot. So I just was being a hater in 2001. You got to give me a break. I was only like 15 years old. So The Others. Yeah, this one is definitely like a gothic period piece. And set design's perfect. Cinematography's really good. Nicole Kidman's really good. The acting's really good. So Nicole Kidman lives in this big house by herself, and she's waiting for her husband to get back from World War II. He's a couple years late, so it looks like he's probably not coming back, if you know what I mean. They're English, if I'm not mistaken. They kind of live in an isolated island location area, and she's a woman that believes in facts and the Bible. And if it's not in the Bible and it's not factual or anything like that, she will not buy it. If it's not, you know, straightforward, she just cannot understand it. She has her set of rules, and if they're broken, it bothers her completely. She has 2 kids that are basically, I don't know what the disease is, but they can't be touched by the sun. They get sick, they get blisters, they die. So she has these really strict rules in the house where if you open a door, before you open another door, you must close that door. The blinds all must be closed when the kids are there. They do not have electricity. So essentially, she lives there with 2 of her kids, and she's looking for new people to come and be like the caretakers, you know, of the house. The old ones just quit unexpectedly. So these 3 show up one day, an older woman, a younger girl, and an older man. And they basically start right away. And there's some turmoil kind of later on with them, of course. And right about the halfway mark, you figure out pretty much a huge point of this movie where, like, is that going to be it? Is that what we're doing? And that's all that's coming on? Because they make a lot of points to it, and they say it out loud a million times, where she's complaining about things in the Bible, but it can't be like this because it's not reality. I don't want to say it too much because I'll spoil it. But you're like, oh, we're going to do that, and that's going to be it. But the daughter starts to be overtaken with a split personality, and they say they see these people in the house, and there's an old woman that she's seen the most and everything like that, and they set this whole thing up to be one thing, and actually at one point the husband comes back, and you're just like, oh, now we're pretty much for sure in that. But there is a second twist, and that second twist, after you think about it more, makes the movie better. Like, I was thinking about it, and I was like, that it's so perfect, because she refused to believe in anything that wasn't printed in the Bible or could be pertained as fake or anything like that. She's only believing in the real things and everything like that. So it worked perfectly well. And you kind of figure out exactly, you know, who those people are. Later on, of course, and it's a movie that I don't think's ever been done quite like that. The ending, I don't think's ever been duplicated. Or maybe there was one before, but I don't want to spoil it because it's so weird, and it's actually the best part of the movie. Without the ending, it's kind of rather lackluster. But with the ending, it makes it good. It makes it pretty damn good, and it's a nice little twist. I'm not in love with the movie, but I do respect it and like it. It's well shot. It's well acted. It's got a great, set piece, and it's just got a nice little twist in here. It's a PG-13 horror movie. It's a good one to show the family if they got patience and everything like that. I would recommend checking this one out. It's pretty good. Another one from 2001 that I enjoyed, The Others.
Sometimes the world of the dead gets mixed up with the world of the living.
As you can see, the housework has been rather neglected since the servants disappeared almost a week ago.
Do you mean they just vanished?
Into thin air.
How do you do, children? I'm your new nanny.
Are you going to leave us too?
Why should I leave you?
The others said they wouldn't, but they did, and then it happened. Why do you open the curtains? It was Victor.
You told your brother that there was someone else in the room.
There was.
That'll do, Anne.
I've seen them too. Sooner or later, she'll see them. Then everything will be different.
What do you want?
They're everywhere. They say this house is theirs.
No! Children!
Come here!
Run!
Can't you hear it?
Okay, now we're going to go into that run through 91. And this is by Todd Haynes. And I had seen this movie before. This is Poison. And it's been a long time since I watched it. I remembered a lot of it. When I put it in, 2 of the stories came right back to me. This is an anthology. It's 3 stories. They consider it a horror movie. At least a couple of them are definitely horror, not all of them. But it's 3 stories, and they're all cut up. They don't go in order, so they're all cut up. And they're 3 highly different kind of genres of film. We have one that's like kind of a pseudo documentary, kind of fake documentary, true crime story retelling. One that's like a black and white kind of take on the 50s horror sci-fi movies, and then one that is kind of like this weird prison drama and they all kind of deal with homosexuality in one way or the other. The 50s, 60s kind of horror black and white one is definitely like a take on, being like the HIV monster and afraid to say that you have it, and that spread of it and the panic and the paranoia and everything or even just being gay, you know what I mean? Like that whole thing. So, and then we have the story of the documentary too, where like the person's kind of an outsider and they're not liked and everything too, being picked on. And then we have the prison one, which is probably the most deep in terms of it for me, like as in terms of longing and everything. And that one just has some really twisted things in it, or moments of like masculinity and everything, because it takes place in the 40s and it's a prison movie, and it has flashbacks within it where they talk about this young man moves into the prison, and this other guy knew him from the youth kind of like prison or whatever the hell they were at, basically those kind of places that Carl Panzram grew up in and became a monster in, those kind of places, and Albert Fish. But these like basically he knew this guy, and everybody picked on him, and he always watched him be like physically raped and beaten and everything like that. And it has this weird infatuation with him when he comes into his prison, and he himself is kind of an outsider. He's a homosexual, and although the other guys seem to engage in homosexual activities, I don't think they would consider themselves homosexual, if that makes any sense to anybody within a prison terms or anything like that. But the way that one unfolds is just really kind of a weird statement and everything like that, and just kind of dark and depressing. The 50s sci-fi one works really well for me. I like that one too. I think it's kind of creepy and crazy and everything, and it's a tragic love story. I think it works. And, of course, the one that feels real. I just like that kind of style of filmmaking, how they interview all these people, and they just kind of let some of them freestyle and go off and stuff. It just comes across real to me. And all 3 of these stories kind of mix together, these 3, conventional, I guess, storytelling techniques, even though the prison one feels a little unconventional. But the whole movie as a whole is unconventional as hell. But the 3 stories would be considered pretty typical, but they're all mixed in, and they all are told, and they climax at the same time and everything like that. Just makes it interesting, and it makes it kind of a unique statement on those kind of things in general. So I really like this one. I think it works well. I would be curious to see them cut up in like just their whole shorts, but I actually think it works well this way. There's just a really kind of almost crazy moment in the prison one where he's being interviewed when he's sent into the prison, and it's the 40s, right? So basically the warden or who's ever signing him in, maybe the doctor, psychiatrist, or whatever, he's like, it says here that you engaged in sex with, and he doesn't want to say it, with males, and he's just like, and there's like this long pause, and he's like, yeah, whatever. And he's like, so he's going to write homosexual. And he's like, is that 1 word or 2? Like, and that's just kind of crazy there. And someone actually told me that's because at the time in the 40s, Roosevelt actually had changed and made basically the entire United States or whatever have a code for spelling certain words certain ways, because, a lot of people would spell different things like color and gray probably differently in different states and everything like that. So they basically had to get it all under the same umbrella, and maybe the term was fairly relatively new or something that nobody really had to say back in the day. But anyways, this is kind of definitely a cult movie, has a huge following, and Todd Haynes is a director that went on to do a bunch more stuff that I'm not really familiar with. I'm a big cult horror Western guy, so those are the movies that I kind of gravitate to. So this one being a cult movie I had seen before and heard a lot of things about it. I really like it. I think it's a really good movie. So it's interesting as hell too, and all 3 of the stories are pretty good. I don't know if I'd put it fully in horror, but at least one of the stories is definitely a horror movie. Big sci-fi too, for sure. But I like that one too. It's science gone wrong, of course. Somebody who's like kind of a brilliant man screws up working on sexual hormones and becomes this sexual leper killer, and it spreads like crazy, and it just basically turns everybody into this thing. And it gives me it kind of reminds me of Eraserhead a little bit too, just the look of it. But I like this one. I think it's good. I think it's worth checking out for sure. Then the next one here from 1991 is No Telling by Larry Fessenden. And I don't want to be negative, but I really have a hard time connecting to Larry Fessenden's work. Depraved, the Frankenstein story he made, I just did not really like it. This one is also a Frankenstein story, No Telling. I think it's aka the Frankenstein Complex or something like that. Now, stuff like Beneath and Last Winter, I was fine with when I saw him. I don't remember how, I haven't watched him in such a long time. And I adore when Larry Fessenden pops up in a movie. Like, he's one of my favorite parts popping up in a lot of movies, like The Mind's Eye or even Session 9 when he pops up. It's like, oh shit, it's Larry Fessenden, or The Dead Don't Die. He's a very good actor. And his movies are well made for the most part, and they have something to say. But his characters always leave me very empty. And I don't know if that's its intent, and maybe it's just not working for me, or that's his message in general and I'm just not getting it, but that's how they do. No Telling is, I like how this one's shot, let me say that. It's got to be, is it 16? Looks pretty 16 to me, but I like how it's shot. They cleaned it up really well in this. I like how it's shot and edited. I think there's some good editing techniques that kind of cut into the next scene really well. I think there's some good, long shots and cool, kind of do-it-yourself cinematography that I love when it comes to independent cinema. And there's some other things too that I like. The location I love, kind of this countryside horror movie, like that too. And maybe this is one that if I watched again, I would enjoy it more. But we have a couple that kind of moves out into this rural area where the husband is basically working on kind of getting a grant. He kind of got some funding, but he's working on trying to cure paralyzed people. So he uses a lot of lab animals and everything like that. He wants to be isolated into this location and just work his heart out to his content. His wife is kind of an artist, so she takes pictures and does paintings and everything like that. So they're isolated out in this kind of rural area. Nearby, there's also this guy named Alex Vine who's basically working on trying to make a, I guess you'd say like a natural farming stuff that and go against the big corporate greedy companies that are pumping nasty chemicals into the area that are killing farm life and everything like that, and livestock and everything. So he's kind of working directly with a lot of the local farmers, and one of them he kind of befriends and everything like that. But there starts this weird kind of love triangle, I guess you'd say, between the three of them: Alex Vine, the photographer wife, the artist wife, and the scientific husband. So it's only weird that I remember Alex Vine's name is the only character I remember in the movie, probably because everybody says it 100 times. But it starts obviously to get complicated, and one of the big set pieces in the movie is that there's this big argument at dinner, and I feel like that's Larry Fessenden kind of talking on all sides of the story here, talking about how science is kind of messed up and everything, and like the big corporate greedy and everything like that. But this movie, I believe, is a statement on the mistreatment of animals. I think that's what Larry is, a big animal lover. So then the special features they talk about, wanting, not wanting to put a lot of stress on the animals in the movie to prove a point, but they think that there's a certain extent worth it, like we got to get our message across. We won't really hurt the animals. Maybe just, putting them a little bit through stress is worth the message that we're going to get across. But, of course, the scientist, he starts to run out of material and everything like that, and he's on a breakthrough, so he starts to capture certain animals and traps and everything like that, and it gets darker and sicker, and I think his character turns a little too dark, a little too fast, and at the end of the movie, like, I don't think these people love their pets or hate human beings enough, because they really should have done something more severe to this character. I just can't control myself in situations like this. I might have terrible temper, but I think most people would have went overboard with it. I think that the characters turn out to be kind of wimpy, and it kind of bothers me. And maybe that it's trying to be more realistic in the sense, but I just had a hard time swallowing a lot of that without, and I was just kind of at that point where I was like, not doing it for me, that ending. It's just a little weak and lackluster. And maybe that's the point, to leave you empty inside or unfinished. But it's just kind of almost like not enough comeuppance or not enough oomph at the end to do much for me, to be honest. Now, there's some scenes that I really like in here where the woman's thinking about cheating on her husband, and she's waiting outside in the rain, and she's like, what am I doing? And she gets on the bike and rides off. I think that's a nice shot, nice moment. I think that there's a really good moment when the actual husband and wife have sex, and they just the way it's shot and the way they do it is just a little bit different than another Hollywood movie would film and stuff like that. I like that. Again, I like the small little kind of rural location area. The dialogue's pretty decent too. I don't think the acting's poor, and some of the special effects at the end are pretty good. So it is definitely a movie. The Frankenstein complex fits well. No Telling is basically just saying no telling how far people will go. and what they will do. So this one is a little bit lukewarm for me. I know a lot of people will like it. And I do think it's interesting. I do think people need to see this for themselves, and I think a lot of people will love it. Eat it up. It's just like I said, I had the same kind of problems with The Depraved. It's just, I'm not sure if I want to, no telling. I like the two characters enough. Depraved, I didn't like any of the characters enough to want to watch them. But No Telling just doesn't have enough at the end for me to do anything with. And it just kind of really bothered me. And maybe its intent is to bother me and make me feel like crap and not give me any satisfaction. And there, in that case, it's a positive. But initial thoughts, it just kind of leaves me empty inside and aggravated. So that's No Telling.
It was supposed to be a perfect summer in the country. A second honeymoon for Lillian and Jeffrey Gaines. A time for Lillian to find out.
Your husband's not exactly an MD, is he? I love you.
Just how well she knows her husband.
Jeffrey?
The public doesn't want to understand. They don't want to know the gory details. They just want to be saved.
I know his work's important, but...
Hey, Lillian.
Don't try to drag me into your problems with Alex Vine. What are you doing out there that's making you so paranoid?
Believe me, this is not how I want to work, but they've given me no choice.
God, Jeffrey, what have you done?
I am trying to save lives. Why are you protecting
I'm not protecting him, he's my fucking husband!
Someone is experimenting with our future,
Jeffrey, what is going on?
and there's no telling how far he will go.
The Frankenstein Complex.
Hey guys, it's Blindspot here. What with the day the Earth stood still, we're here to review it. It's decent, alright. See you next week with his pick.
How come when you do an impersonation of me, you're doing me doing an impersonation of a guy from Chicago? Hey guys, what's up? This is Blindspot. Do your thing. Why are you in the dark? You look all orange over there.
What?
I think only lights hitting me and no lights.
I think so.
You gotta just be blind.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we gotta be insensitive to blind people now.
Is that what we're
That's
doing?
what we're doing, because that's what we're gonna be accused of, even though no blind person would be watching YouTube.
They could be listening.
You're right.
Yeah.
We should cut this.
Or watching a movie.
Okay. Regardless, this is Blindspot. We're here to do The Day the Earth Stood Still. This is Jeremy's pick. I had actually never seen it either, which is bad. This is a 1951 sci-fi movie, and this also continues Jeremy's run through the Rocky Horror Picture Show song.
Yes.
Where he based all his picks on.
Not all of them. We got Carrie or something.
Half of them. But okay, this, like I said, 51. It was directed by Robert Wise, who actually directed The Haunting and a bunch of other movies, it was just kind of crazy that, he did this. And when I saw his name, I was like, geez, I didn't know he did this one as well. But do you want to take over the plot of this one, or do you want me to?
Yeah, let's do the plot.
You go ahead.
All right. So, there is a UFO that is circling the Earth. And all the nations of the world are broadcasting it, and it eventually lands in Washington, D.C., where after some studying, an alien comes out, and he wants to speak to all the world's leaders all at once.
And immediately, we shoot the alien, because that's how American people are. And honestly, at this point in time, with current situations, there's no doubt that we would just shoot the alien. On the spot, because that's what we are at this point. But regardless, the alien recovers quickly, and he has a message for the people of Earth.
Right, and so what it is he wants to speak to all the nations all at once, and the American that he's working with is like, well, we can't guarantee that. The political climate's kind of wishy-washy.
Well, that's just because bureaucracy and nonsense, how we always are. We can never come together for anything, no matter what. This movie is so ahead of its
Oh,
time.
it's so poignant, and it's not bureaucracy. It's just that the other nations,
Pettiness.
We're in the middle of the Cold War.
It's pettiness though too.
Right. Like he shows them the telegrams from like the Soviet Union and things like that. Like it must be in Moscow. It must be over here. And it's like, well, I kind of landed here. So the Martian, he's not a Martian, he's an alien. The alien goes and lives with, some neighborhood people.
He actually has to escape, and
Yeah.
he escapes, and he ends up going to like one of these like shared community homes,
Mhm.
and he starts to befriend a little boy who seems to be the only one that can understand him and give him a chance. And they kind of go around the town, and he starts to speak to him, and you learn a lot about the alien and his outlook on life and everything. And he wants to meet with one of the like head professors.
Right.
So that's kind of the plot here. But the government's catching on to him, and people start to think he's evil. Maybe it's even like a big kind of. I guess people could say this is like a thing for communism too. But people like
You
always
could
trying to
say
search
that.
because you know what I mean. Like they're all going crazy trying to find him, and they think he's a violent,
Mhm.
even though they're the ones who shot him, and he did absolutely nothing wrong.
Right.
But he does have this giant, like, sentry robot named Gork?
Gork or Gort? I can't
Gort.
remember.
I wanted to call him Gorsh because the Gorsh brothers, but it's Gort. Yeah, and he's just like big robot, and just pretty much. I feel like he's been a template for like villains like Nimrod or a bunch of other Marvel characters. I can't.
Gort?
Yeah,
Yeah,
for
he-
sure. Very inspirational in the sci-fi world and comic world.
Oh, absolutely. And video game world, if you guys ever played Earthbound, I think Starman has his design rooted in him to some extent.
Well, another interesting point is right. I noticed his name was Klaatu, or something around those lines. And at one point, somebody is given directions to say something to a robot, Klaatu, Barada, Niktu. And the first time I registered has two huge influences that basically took it from this movie. First is Star Wars. Like watching this, I was like, oh, those are all names of skiff guards because I used to collect the toys. So we have Klaatu, and he's like, they are all different skiff guards in the movie. And then they would go on later to use that in Army of Darkness, where the three words that Ash has to say before he takes the Necromonicon, and of course he screws up and doesn't say the last one. Niktu, there I said it, or whatever he does. So that's really great how influential this movie was, and no one really brings up that point. That Army of Darkness kind of and Star Wars took it from this movie.
Yeah. Well, I've never seen this movie, obviously. And I don't know how influential this is
I
to
imagine
pop
it's-
culture, but I mean, just those
Yeah.
examples right there. What do we want to talk about this movie?
Well, I'm just surprised how poignant it is.
Yeah.
And it feels like an amazing Twilight Zone episode long. And that's how like a lot of great sci-fi movies or horror movies you compare. Like, this just feels like one of the best Twilight Zone episodes of all time.
Yeah.
And this one obviously was, made around the same time, around that same time period and stuff. And I'm kind of surprised, like, even if they made a movie today like this, I feel like a lot of people would be angry at it.
Ooh.
I feel like people are like, it's just pushing its message. But if you do push your message correctly or smoothly, it's just like so much better. And I just don't know if today's filmmakers could push a message like this in a good enough direction, or today's audience are just so easily upset over everything.
Well, let's talk about this message, though, because it's interesting. So
Yeah.
he comes from an alien planet, a whole alien society. It sounds like there's several planets. And they're concerned because mankind is increasing its nuclear capability, and soon they're going to be putting nukes onto spaceships. And
Yeah, they do not want nukes in space because
Right.
they don't care what we do to each other. They're not going to
Mhm.
govern us, but they are going to govern space, and they basically have anybody who acts outward with violence in that kind of way is decimated.
Right.
It's kind of like the what is the bomb in Strangelove? If anybody shoots a bomb, we all get bombed.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Like the whole point of the Doomsday Machine is to, inspire fear. Why would you not tell the world its effect is lost? That's not the exact quote, but
yeah, similar.
Yeah, one of my favorite movies. But look at this alien civilization. They're really advanced. They heal each other. They live a long time. They're peaceful. Their solution, however, is to live under the rule of like an authoritarian, like police robot force.
Well, there's only one rule though.
There is only one rule, but so I guess my question is how much free will do you have in the future?
Yeah.
Or
how much
in
free will
space.
should be even given?
Right.
I mean, is your free will actually being attacked when it's only telling you not to break the law or man's law in general, not kill someone?
I can do whatever I want, but what's that saying that like you're free to wave your arm, but your that right stops, or you have the right to wave your arm in the air, but that right stops when it makes contact with my face.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of the same way, right?
I think that's kind of what this is getting at. Like, do what you do, but don't.
It's strange. It's a complex kind of issue that people would obviously debate on. Is total, is total freedom even worth it when you can't have? You know what I mean?
Right.
It's complicated. I love the Klaatu. He's great.
Mm-hmm.
I love him, and really it shows you get annoyed at a lot of the human characters just because they're ignorant. And I love the news media is interviewing people, and they interview the alien, and they're talking to people about the alien, and they don't know he's the alien. Of course, he's kind of incognito, and they ask him, and he starts to break it down in like an intellectual, intelligent way, and they're like, "That's great." And they go to the next guy,
like you're terrified, aren't you?
And they're like, "Yeah, it's scary." And it's just like the news media like interviews the dumbest people they can find and just ask the most leading questions, and they don't care about anything intelligent. They're just like trying to get enough little snippets for the 7 o'clock news or whatever.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think this movie translates really well today, and even like I think the current political climate in some regard. But look at us dating this movie. Anyways, but I think that also your comment on the media. I think both Dr. X had that kind of commentary too.
Yeah.
And what was the other one you picked last week?
After Dr. X, Eyes Without a Face. They did basically mention the media as well.
Yeah, similar.
It's funny because we're always talking about how like a lot of people are like, movies don't have any. Back then, they just made movies. It's like, not really. I just mean they were better at putting their message in there without hitting you over the head with it. And even when they did hit you over the head with it, it was so well done you didn't care. Like Romero's movies. But I don't know what it is about people. People are like, I just go to see movies for entertainment. It's like, you didn't really.
You didn't. And the thing is, like these issues have always been with us. They will always be with us. And we might remember when we were younger, not necessarily picking it up on those topics, but they informed us in a subconscious way. They were always there.
And I will admit that sometimes messages in movies are kind of annoying when they're overdone.
Preachy. Yeah,
they're preachy and stuff, shove it down your throat. But I don't know. I feel like a lot of these movies, especially 50s sci-fi movies, always had something to say, and it was well done, and people, they basically reacted to that well,
right,
or thought about it.
I do think that a lot. I don't know. We haven't watched any that have been really communisty yet.
A lot of people say Invasion of Body Snatchers is, but Don Siegel himself said basically it was a metaphor for not being able to sleep. But the reason that movie works so well is that you can take it anyway, like, they're communists, they're the anti-communists, they're people that can't sleep. You can do anything with it. That's why that one's so everybody loves that movie, and it works so well.
And I think part of the thing with film analysis in general is, is this the author's intent? Did the author know his intent? Should the author be removed?
Is it conscious or subconscious?
I will always maintain that I don't necessarily think that Romero knew what he was making when he made Night of the Living Dead. I mean, I knew that he knows what he's making, but I think that how it panned out, I think it was like a accidental genius. Yeah. Now he did carry it through to his other movies, and they are fantastic. But I think that those ones were a bit more intentional.
Yeah. I thought this was a pretty good movie, actually. It was kind of amazing. Yeah.
I'd give this one we got to do the book review, but I'd give it out of 5, maybe a solid 4.
Yeah, I'm like 8 out of 10.
Yeah, it is, like I said, it's very Twilight Zone-y episode.
It could go up for sure if I watch it again. It's not in my book. It's not on Tear on Tape, but it is on John Stanley's Creature Features, and Jeremy's going to read it.
We're going to read it. Again, this is not a Hammer movie, so I don't know why it's in this book.
Stop it. Those books have a bunch of things in there.
All right. Day the Earth Stood Still, 1951. He gives it 5 stars?
5 out of 5.
I thought he only did 4.
No, that's James O'Neill.
That's the other guy?
That's why you have to say. Yeah.
Oh. Wait, I don't read this one.
Yes, you do.
No, I read the one that's all peeling at the cover. You tricked me. This is your book.
And you lost a spot.
Hold on, we'll find it again.
Is it my book?
Yeah, this one's your book. You tricked me.
You're such a fuck up. How'd you lose the page?
You can't be swearing on YouTube like that.
Shut up. All right. Day the Earth Still. 5 out of 5. One of the finest sci-fi movies of the 50s, thanks to director Robert Wise's concern for atmosphere and characterization. Harry Bates' short story, Farewell to the Master, was altered by writer Edmund North, but the essence is kept. Michael Rennie is Klaatu, an alien who lands his flying saucer in Washington, D.C. to warn us we must settle our geopolitical differences or else. Wounded by soldiers, he is hospitalized, but goes undercover to locate a brilliant scientist in order to gather the intelligentsia to hear his plea. To prove he means business, Klaatu stops all machinery on Earth for 1 hour. The score by Bernard Herrmann is classic and even theologically... that word's such a tongue twister for me. Theological... I can't say theological as a theologian. You say it. I can't say theological in that term.
I don't even know where you're pointing.
Right there.
Theologians.
Theologians. Jesus Christ, I wanted to say theological. Have studied the peculiar Christ symbolism North inserted into the script. Patricia Neal is the love interest who befriends the alien and seeks out a 7-foot robot Gort to utter Klaatu, Barada Niktu, to keep Gort from destroying the world. Gort was Lock Martin, a 7-7 doorman. And usually Jeremy reads these before he reads them, and I didn't read this one, so I had a little tongue twister there. But yeah, I also forgot about Bernard Herrmann's score, which is kind of crazy to see Bernard Herrmann, because immediately he's always associated with Psycho, but he's done a bunch, and Taxi Driver for me.
Well, we didn't even talk about like the scene that the day the Earth stood still. Is that what this movie's called?
Yeah, that's a good scene.
Yeah.
It definitely reminds me of something like Twilight Zone, 110%.
Yeah, there's just some fantastic footage of like everybody just like losing their shit because like the electric cows won't milk.
Yeah,
and
I liked it better when they went crazy in Maximum Overdrive.
Yeah. What a
Do you think he based the whole movie of Maximum Overdrive on the day the Earth stood still?
No,
scene?
he based that movie off of a coke
cocaine
binge. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
but Jeremy, who made who? Who made you? Ain't nobody told you.
Is that Maximum Overdrive?
That's AC/DC in the soundtrack of Maximum Overdrive.
Why is the Green Goblin in that movie? Did they get the rights for that?
Yes, I'm sure of it. Stephen King always puts stuff like that.
That's so weird. It's such a weird
Who cares?
thing.
I love it.
I care.
Okay, so Maximum Overdrive, for me, is probably all right, Day the Earth Stood Still, classic movie. Next week is Planet of the Apes. I've never seen Planet of the Apes. I know it's horrible.
I have seen Planet of the Apes. I've seen like 15 Planet of the Apes.
We got it. We're done.
It's always on USA. I don't know how you ever missed it.
We're done.
Bye.
We interrupt this program to give you a bulletin just received from one of our naval units at sea. A large object traveling at supersonic speed is headed over the North Atlantic toward the east coast of the United States.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Drew Pearson. We bring you this special radio television broadcast in order to give you the very latest information on an amazing phenomenon, the arrival of a space ship in Washington. The Army has taken every precaution to meet any emergency which may develop. Just a minute, ladies and gentlemen, I think something is happening.
I came here to give you these facts. But if you threaten to extend your violence, this earth of yours will be reduced to a burned out cinder.
But he's a robot. Without you, what could he do?
There's no limit to what he could do. He could destroy the Earth.
All vehicles, close in. Let's go.
All right, guys, let's get into these questions. Tempo Tapas, are you looking forward to Possessor? I only heard about it a few weeks ago. It sounds like it Will be interesting. Yes, that's Cronenberg's son's movie, right? I haven't even watched his first yet, Antiviral. But Possessor, I saw the cover and it looked batshit. I'm definitely interested. I try to avoid trailers. Definitely interested in that one. Nick Mua, liking the blue shirt day. Very boardroom-ish. Do you have a tie to match? Maybe. I don't know. I dress like a slob. You guys haven't noticed for the most part. Also, it wasn't it wasn't a death head's moth that you had in your throat, right? Because then I'd be worried about you. I don't think so. Questions. Is there such a thing as too many twists in a scary movie? Recently brought the 2019 thriller I See You, featuring Helen Hunt, and I liked every minute of it, especially those twists. Some reviewers thought this film tried too hard, that the screenwriter went overboard. Please share your thoughts on the use of twists and turns. I think effective twists and turns can work really well. Like the others, you have the one where you predict it, and you don't think you're going to get a second one, but when you do, you're like, oh, that makes the whole movie worth it. And sometimes it just gets dumb. Like at the end, if I Spit on Your Grave, Deja Vu, another twist, you're like, okay, here we go, is another goddamn dumb twist. It depends. It all really depends on everything and too many variables in the movie. If you have too many twists, you might lose your audience and everything like that. So it depends, to be honest. But and then we have, it's often said that creepypastas are the natural evolution of dark fairy tales and urban legends. I remain unconvinced. Did you see the laugh out loud disaster Slenderman? How do you feel about them? I haven't really read that many creepypastas. I don't really pay attention to them. I've heard some things about Slenderman and everything. Didn't watch it. Not really interested. I guess that's the way the world's going. But, if one comes out and it looks great, I'll watch it. But I haven't really been keeping up on creepypastas. As you're a filmmaker, I wanted to ask you, what do you prefer to use for movie blood? What has the best color and texture? I'm not really a good filmmaker, if you haven't noticed. I don't really know what the hell I'm doing, and I haven't done that many things. So, there's different kind of blood, though, that you will use. If you know you got to get it out of the carpet or something, you'll put a little bit of soap in there and everything, mix, food coloring and everything like that. You can order the blood. If you got to put it in somebody's mouth, some people will use a chocolate-based blood. So it all depends on what kind of blood you'll be using. I'm not an expert on this, of course. I'm not even really good at special effects at all. But I do know that if you're going to mix it, you do want drops of red, but you want drops of blue, too, to darken it up. So you got to get the right mixture and everything like that. So you'd be better off asking somebody like Dustin Mills or Marcus Cook or somebody that actually knows what the fuck they're talking about. But I just know that we've used multiple different kinds of blood. And some people just order the blood online and just don't, and it works for them. So, okay, then we have some answers. Basically, I asked last week what fear you have would make a great horror movie. Nick Mua, one fear that I have is being motionless. I used to have a reoccurring nightmare where I'm in my bedroom, is beyond pitch black, and suddenly I realize I can't move an inch. I also become increasingly aware that some dread thing is coming for me, though I can't describe it. Enters the room and still can't move a muscle. It's right above me, then I wake up gross and sweaty. And then Cameron Scott, keeping it real here, dying alone. Yep. Corey Zunk, the world we live in is fake and all the people are actors, like The Truman Show, but the guy finds out and gets the show canceled, making all his supposed friends and family wanting him dead because of loss of money and stuff like that. Matthew Ham, waking up to find I'm a victim in a snuff movie. William Adcock, Centipedes. There's a Chinese black magic film called Centipede Horror about a woman puking up centipedes, but they could definitely do an arachnophobia type movie with centipedes. I think I've seen Centipede Horror, and there's also eels in that movie. Is it Indonesian? But regardless, very gross. And then Matthew Hudson replies to him, my choice as well, terrifying fuckers. Movie could go two ways, small normal peds and arachnophobia clone, or giant centipede. You ever seen the National Geographic video showing the centipede killing the tarantula? Imagine giant peds does that to a human. I couldn't watch, in case you never saw it, and he posted, if centipedes are in fear in you as they are in me, I wouldn't watch it. And then basically, Jeremy post, accidentally eating dookie. They can get something else because you weren't paying attention again. Stop it. Lee Jones, The Irrational Ones. I know that's a cop-out. Mark Humphreys, the current situation the world is in, as long as it's not full moon making the film. Okay. Bobby Jose, nasty case of trypophobia, like instant appearing disease. Peter England, high anxiety, sort of Alfred Hitchcock's Vertigo 2.0. Damien Zygote, fear of making a movie. Tom, basically Horseball, 4 more years of Trump. Jamal Potter, waking up and finding myself living in Minneapolis. Cody Lee Harden, fear of Dave not being my friend anymore. Well, no need to fear that, because it's already happened. Jill Ann, it already was, arachnophobia. Jason Shawan, the floor of an elevator dropping out. Could be terrifying. Farting napalm. What if every pore yield all its pus at the same time? Those are all three his. Scott Fox, Heights. Timothy Toho Collin, Fear of Waking Up Dead. Oh, the plot is so thick with groovy shit. Rachel Wilker, Being Trapped Somewhere with Confined Room. Justin Patrick, I'm not afraid of anything because I'm a man, so I guess my only fear would be if I was magically less manly. Hilarious. He does then post, I do have a minor fear of phobia of dishwater. Jay Wall, I have an irrational fear that someone put acid in my Vicine bottle, sorry. I don't know if that's even possible, and it wouldn't make a great movie, but maybe a great scare that would traumatize me for the rest of my life. Septum Sin, a fear of cats killing herrings on the streets of New York with clubs that are actually small walruses. So realism, huh? Zach Killingsworth, well, there are plenty of ocean horrors, maybe gang stalking. PJ Fernandez, Republicans. Let's keep it loud. We're getting a little political, guys. I'm just kidding. Do whatever you want. Thomas H. Peterson, Porn Movies Revenge. David Gibson, The Terror of a Damaged Slipcover. J.P. Andrika, Serial Killers Freak Me Out, so being in that kind of situation, running into the wrong person. Cody Cooper, I have a fear of abandonment. I fear that people who I care about and are my friends will one day stop caring about me. So I think that could make a good horror movie, being completely abandoned until you're left all alone. I know some people might see this as a good thing. Kevin Roach, I have an irrational fear of dark water. I don't care if it's a swimming pool at night. Sends shivers up my spine just thinking about it. Adrian Hall, Heights. Oddly, it hasn't been done that much. There's Hitchcock's Vertigo, which isn't really a horror, and then I'm struggling to find other examples. The Last Circus is one. Oh boy, the heights at the end of The Last Circus made me want to die. And Day of the Beast, same director. They do good stuff with heights there. Steven Fernando, I just overcame a strange, embarrassing, and unusual fear of being in front of the camera. Looking into the lens to me was like making eye contact with a ghost. I had terrible anxiety attacks when I would try. Only recently I conquered my fear and am back in front of the camera. That's strange. I guess it happens though. My first reviews are horrible. I'm just like, and then the guy was like, ha. You know, it happens. John Smith, the dead version of myself coming to get me. LOL, but they already made that movie like Mongo, and it was presented the exact way I've always pictured this happening to me. James D. Cokes, whales. They scared the shit out of me. Doesn't help they're in water, but they're so unnaturally big. Faith Botwin, these fucking things. They're called sprickets, and are usually spiders with a body of a cricket and can hop like 10 feet in the air. They're very common in New Jersey, and I hate them so much. Seth Paulin, he basically backs us up. These were common in the last apartment I lived in. They called them cave crickets or camel crickets there. I had never seen them before and nearly shit myself when I first saw the first one. They jump is especially fucked up because I'm pretty sure they just end up wherever they end up with no real sense of targeting or direction. Scott Herliska, kangaroo scared the shit out of me. Rakesh Brown, trypophobia. Martin C. Boyer, fear of horror movie writers and directors that are perverted psychopaths and liberals. Get over it. Inside there. Chris Leppert, fear that the bipolar and depression I've tried to handle will be too much to deal with, especially with everything going on. Also worried that there will never be an opportunity to be part of a real connection with someone. That having to be a phone call with a relative who wants to remind you of insanity is real, while politics, religion, and conspiracies can be talked about nonstop forever. And then we have some old answers. Basically, I asked you what Blue Underground releases you wanted in 4K. Derek B. Hey, Dave. He basically wants a 4K edition of For the Apocalypse. Robert White. I'd like to see Rats, Knights of Terror get the 4K Special Treatment Edition. I know they've released it a couple times. I'm just not sure how much more material they have access to with that release, but I'd love that. Cheers. Tony Araro. Black Belly the Tarantula. That would be a dream come true. Jason Fetters. Case of the Bloody Iris is a great yellow. Horror's Ball. I want Baba's Shock. Just on Blu-ray would be nice. Dead and Buried, The Prowler, and Blade in the Dark would be my tops. Timothy Matthew Hayes, heard there was talks a while back of the 4K restoration of Dead and Buried, but something kept it from happening. And he said, also heard Daughter's Darkness getting a 4K, but I think that's on hold. Math Brown, The Prowler, Shockwaves, Fight for Your Life. Sean Brucker, totally forgot they had the Blind Dead movies too. The first two would be amazing. Also, Chris Leppard, I sent you an email about and picked Fight for Your Life because it's freaking amazing. Nathaniel Bailey, Blind Dead movies or Blade in the Dark. Robert White, I'd like to see Rats, Knights of Terror get the 4K special treatment. I know they released a couple. I think I got that one already. Sorry. Michael K. I'd like to see Blue Underground do an updated release of Mikel Suave's 1987 underrated slasher Stage Fright. Sawin Christ 500 for the viewer's question. I'd love to see the Blue Underground give Dead and Buried a new 4K edition, even more so the fancy limited edition with CD of the score. Hope to see that someday. I would also have liked if they would have kept the rights to City of the Dead and given it a 3-disc limited edition and 4K treatment too. Me too. Lance Lust, I would love to see see Blue Underground find the original negatives and make a 4K remaster of Shockwaves. Terrific reviews. I'd love to see Let Sleeping Corpses Lie on 4K. I'm sorry about your Catman. It's super hard to lose a pet. Thank you. And information, I posted this because Tempo Tapas, regarding the Q&A question about the Civil War movies, I'd recommend Free State of Jones. It's based on the real life of farmer from Mississippi, played by Matthew McConaughey, who deserted from and fought against the Confederate Army. He basically, somebody asked Civil War recommendations, he's giving one. And the question of the week, I know I've asked this before, but I got to ask, what is the best 2020 horror movie genre film that's been released so far? I'm having trouble watching a lot of them. I'm just not excited for the 2020 movies this year. So ones that have already been released that are good, if they're on Shudder, if they're on Amazon, if I can see it, if I can rent it, let me know, because I'd like to see it. So I guess we're not going to hop into the update because I don't have an update this week. I have a bunch of stuff coming in, but nothing has come in yet. Maybe it's the mail's on, whatever. I don't have anything this week. That's like the first time ever. But yeah, so see you guys. I already did the buy, so I'm going to play it again. All right, guys, thank you very much for watching. And as always, you guys have a good one.